very excited to have on the show a man who is probably one of the, well, let's just call a spade a spade. He is one of the biggest geeks in the world of cybersecurity. He's the head of global research at a security firm called Sophos, and it is critical to listen to people who are cybersecurity experts because there is so much damage happening to normal people every day, and they don't even know what's happening to them. So tell me something, James. What is the damage that's really happening these days in terms of cybersecurity to normal people? Let's just talk about investors and stuff.
No, absolutely. So cybercrime has evolved astonishingly over the years. I've been watching malware and cybercriminals evolve and viruses for the last 12 years now. And it's just amazing to me the new ways they find to make money from people. Just a couple of statistics to give you a sense of the damage and impact they have on everyday people. We now see just over 350,000 new pieces of malicious code every single day in Sophos labs, every day. A huge volume of malware, of which the grand majority is focused on stealing your credit card information, your bank account information, increasingly going after new things like bitcoins, those cryptocurrencies that some people out there may be using, but essentially a huge volume of malicious code designed to profit from us, the average user of the internet. And
are these codes being written by people, or if there are so many, are they the codes themselves being written by computers?
Oh, that's an excellent observation. Yeah, I remember kind of 9-10 years ago sitting in the labs, and we saw kind of 4,000-5,000 pieces of malware a day. And a lot of that was being, clearly produced by hand, unique variations. But now the cyber criminals have systems designed to generate malware, and they kind of build those systems to generate these new examples, and they're off generating at very high speed, which all gets very, very much like the movie Terminator and Skynet, because of course we have our systems watching their systems, reacting to them, and they have systems watching our systems. And it's all becoming a big war of online machines generating new malware and new defense mechanisms.
This is getting scary. So what are they really trying to do? Because obviously, a lot of times people make the joke, they say, oh, I got an email from my Nigerian prince, or I won the South African lottery, and I knew that one was spam, not to click on it. But what do people have to really watch out for?
Well, there's always someone clicking on that Nigerian prince's email.
It is shocking, actually. It's true.
But nonetheless, there's a wide array of motives here today. There's a lot of different hackers and cyber criminals on the scene. Some people are doing it, frankly, just for fun. Others are doing it for hacktivist purposes, so political or activism related, maybe making a political point. But really, the lion's share of all of that malware out there, all these attacks, is about fraud. It's about making money from your data, from your information. And that's where we end up in one of the most dangerous assumptions of the everyday person. I talk to people all the time and they say, why would a cyber criminal target me? I'm not that interesting. I don't have millions and millions of euros or dollars or pounds or whatever. Why would they bother? And the truth is, cyber criminals opportunistically are very happy to target and make money out of everyone, and we're all a target. So it's really about fraud.
And so really a person who just, for example, let's say he thinks, well, my bank account is pretty safe because the bank is safe, and they use these, encoded websites. What should he be worrying about?
Well, granted, there have been a few incidents recently with banks, in particular in Asia, where cyber criminals have gone after banks directly. But the grand majority of the time, the cybersecurity practices of these banks are extremely high. And the cyber criminals don't go after the bank vault or breaking the powerful encryption that's implemented when you access the site. They go after you, the individual and the user, because it's far easier to hack or infect, 50,000 people's computers than it is to actually go after the bank directly. So most of the time, it's a really simple set of tactics. It's email people with a scam that gets them to click a link going to a web page that contains nasty code that takes advantage of the fact that maybe your computer isn't up to date and running the latest software, and silently in the background install some malware that scrapes your personal information away or intercepts your credit card details. It's phishing, so it's pretending to be a legitimate retailer and asking for you to sign and provide information. One of the most prolific and successful campaigns at the moment is the cybercriminals sending people invoices or payment remittances or tax refunds saying, hey, you have to pay this payment or we're going to take you to court. Here's an invoice. And you open up the attached document, and that's actually what deploys this evil code that steals your money. And last but not least, there's still a wealth of kind of phone call related scams floating around as well. But really, infection via websites and phishing scams via email aren't new. They're not clever, but they are the real techniques the cybercriminals use most of the time.
Right. I guess a lot of the basics work. We're talking to James Lyne, who is an expert not only in the basics of cybersecurity, but also in the more kind of sophisticated side of it. So when you mentioned before about the hackers trying to get people's personal information, a lot of times someone says, "Oh, okay, big deal. At the end of the day, he'll know my name and maybe my social security number." What can someone really do with that? Why is that considered so valuable that we should protect it?
Well, it's an interesting mindset that we're developing at the moment, very much more in the online age, where if we lose our credit card information, like, oh well, someone will cover that. It's insured. And granted, sometimes that is true. Although we are all over the world moving to more of a place where negligence on your part, failing to do the basics, may invalidate that insurance. And certainly for small businesses, a lot of that has already happened. There's no guarantee you get your money back. But there's been a bit of a movement on that as well for consumers. So we should start to take more responsibility for it. If you move outside of the obvious thing, the credit card, and you get to bank account information, security numbers, social security numbers, and so on, a lot of that information can be incredibly useful for fraudulently creating accounts. They may be able to build enough of a profile to be able to, open up a loan account or something with a financial institution. So any of that information is valuable to a cybercriminal, potentially for diverse forms of fraud. And if nothing else, here's a fact for you that I think is stunning. Cybercriminals will pay between 25 cents US dollar equivalent in bitcoins, this cryptocurrency, and $3 just for your email username and password. Even if it's a webmail account of a Yahoo or a Gmail, they'll pay for that because of how valuable you are in distributing their scams to your friends, family, and colleagues.
Wow.
And just that alone is enough worth coming after your computer.
So what do these people look like? Are these people like, snarly little slugs who are sitting in holes, or are they, college students?
Well, there's the wonderful stereotype, isn't there, of you ask people about hackers, and it's either something you've seen in a movie where whilst driving a sports car one-handed using some kind of phone, they managed to turn off an entire block of lights in a city, which sadly and not sadly is a little over-dramatized. There's also the stereotype of the kind of hooded hacker sitting in his mum's basement, growing ever large and spotty. I think the truth is we don't know. We once in a while get to catch these cyber criminals. The international police forces and intelligence agencies are getting much better at tracking people down, but it's still a tiny portion compared to the overall cyber criminal community. So most of them are anonymous. We don't know where they are, and we don't get to meet them. And I think the truth is it could be very much my neighbor living, a couple of meters away, as it could, a cyber criminal sitting in Russia or China. I don't think we can really make much of an assumption about their shape or size. The one thing we can say that is important is over the past few years, their professionalism has increased on an unbelievable basis. They're selling products and services to each other. They've developed an illicit market, underground forums that have better usability than many of the online retail stores us legitimate consumers use. Whoever they are, they're very efficient and very professional.
Okay, you're scaring me. So let's go back to one thing you had said before, which is you mentioned Bitcoin. So a lot of people think that Bitcoin is like the future of currency and a great idea. Now you're kind of describing it as a system that's only used on the black market for, all sorts of evil purposes of hackers. Is Bitcoin the type of thing people should be owning now, or is that just a passing fad?
Yeah, I'm honestly divided on that topic. I mean, I had some great fun with Bitcoin and doing some arbitrage with bots when the exchanges were nice and volatile early on. And I do honestly think there's huge potential, just as generally as a technologist and a security professional, I think there's huge potential for crypto-based currencies and digital currency. And I think, maybe if it's not in this present model, it is a likely future trajectory of currency in general. The cyber criminals have latched onto digital currencies as a mechanism for payment, really because if they can get standard users through their various financial institutions to buy these Bitcoins, it's very easy for them to wash that trail and get the money quickly with far less of the pesky checks and balances that many traditional banks would put in place to look for fraud. So they enjoy it for its liberal and unregulated setup. So it's really not about Bitcoin per se. It's not that it's implicitly evil. It's more about the present model. And some of the things that we like about it as a positive currency also happen to be beneficial to cyber criminals. So I definitely think there's a future in digital currencies. I'm a big proponent of them, but you can't deny we've got some kinks and challenges we need to work out here.
All right, I think it's something that I'm going to be a little wary about. I tend to be a more conservative investor, so I think in the meantime, I don't think I have to be on the bleeding edge of this because a problem there, and there's really no one to turn to at this stage anyway. But we shall see. James, listen, we're just about out of time. But in the last few seconds, tell us, how can people learn more about what you're doing other than watching your TED Talks and follow you?
Well, you could definitely look me up on Twitter. Definitely check out the couple of TED Talks as well that you mentioned. Share them with your friends and family and others to kind of raise awareness of the security topic. And the one thing I would say is, whilst a lot of this stuff can sound scary, we're talking about how professional they are and the scale, which frankly is amazing, even to me as a security professional. A lot of the time, these attacks don't work because of super clever, unblockable Uber viruses. They work because people make basic information security mistakes. And if you jump onto the Sophos website, you look up the top 10 simple tips, all of which are pretty easy to implement. Everyone listening can make life a lot harder for attackers. And I think ultimately things like internet banking, online banking can be a great deal safer than some of their traditional equivalents like the telephone. So go embrace it, go apply those practices, and don't be too scared, but have a healthy fear.
All right, we should all be healthy. We'll put links to all of those at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. James Lyne, thanks so much for taking the time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.